Hey, what's up? Hello everyone, welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl. Today we are going to be reviewing and talking about Polite Society, so make sure to drop a comment down below with your thoughts, drop a like because it helps the channel grow, and if you want to hear more, movie discussions, movie drafts, Oscar talk, drop a subscription because we have new content almost every single day. But Matt, Polite Society, brand new movie, we both checked it out this week. Kick us off.
This is the directorial debut of Pakistani British director Nida Manzoor, who up till now has only made TV and directed for Doctor Who and a few other TV shows in the UK. Polite Society is her directorial debut, and it's a sort of absurd kung fu movie homage about a young aspiring stuntwoman who decides to save her sister from a marriage that she believes is nefarious. This movie has a few Everything Ever All at Once vibes, which is why when I saw this film advertised at Sundance, I was like, ooh, that looks really interesting. It also has a little bit of Edgar Wright in it. Overall, how did we feel about this movie? Because I think we're both a little bit mixed, even though I have a lot of positive. I also have some negative.
I fall in the same camp. I should say up front, I'm not a huge Edgar Wright fan, but I am a big Everything Ever All at Once fan. So, conflicting styles here, some works, some doesn't. My biggest issue with this movie is it's really good and stylized when it starts off, but as the movie goes more and more, it becomes more absurd in a way that doesn't really click or connect with me like in Everything Ever All at Once. But to be positive, I really did enjoy this cast. It's just when we dive deeper and deeper into the chaos that ensues, that stuff ultimately doesn't really work for me.
I would have to agree, but I don't think it's because it goes chaotic. I think it's because it doesn't commit to the chaos. I really like the script of this movie. I think that there's a lot of really fun ideas, a lot of really interesting homages to kung fu movies and just action movies in general. It's doing a lot. I love Edgar Wright, so all those influences here I think were really strong, but that's where I think that this movie also kind of fails a little bit, which is that there's a clash between the real world and the absurd here. In something like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, that movie works at being absurd because the entire world feels absurd. We're not in real Toronto, we're in some sort of video game version of Toronto. That action works because it's all big. The production design is big, the cinematography is big, the editing is big. And here in Polite Society, there's a clash between a director, a cinematographer, and a production designer who all want this movie to feel grounded in the real world. But the writer of the movie doesn't want this to feel real. I think it's interesting because I believe that Nida Manzoor wrote and directed this movie. The clash there really didn't work. I think that if you had production design that went bigger, if you had cinematography that was a little bit more stylized, then maybe that absurdity that you said didn't really click for you, I think it would have worked a lot better than it actually did.
There is angle for that absurdity to work, like in Everything Ever All at Once. Just here, it didn't click because to me, everything felt like it was in her head until that first scene with when the mother of the soon-to-be husband takes her to get that makeover. That's when I was like, oh, it's not just in her head. This is real. I thought everything before was just in her head. She was making everything up. Nothing was actually not going to plan. She just didn't want her sister to be married. When that scene occurs, that was like my switching point. Like, oh, now I'm on a different tone and a wavelength in this movie, and I never really hopped back on it. Even if I was kind of enjoying what I was watching, it wasn't clicking with me for some reason.
Even back to the first big fight scene in the movie between Rhea and her bully in the hallways of the school where they're throwing each other into shit and breaking things, it feels like the design of that scene, the way it's shot, it's going too much for realism when it's clearly absurd. It's goofball kung fu movie, even the way that it Tarantino style splices the movie into chapters. It's referencing these old kung fu movies, but it's so dedicated to making it feel like it's an Amazon Prime original that it just ends up not feeling like it's doing enough of either. And since Nida Manzoor wrote and directed, what I'm feeling here is a writer who is supremely confident in her skills, who knows what she's doing, and a director who is very worried that she's going to go too far overboard and not get a chance to make another movie because she swung too big. But you can't swing big with your writing if you're not going to swing big with your directing. You need to commit
I think the screenplay is very engaging. Like, I was on board for the big swings it was taking, just like you were mentioning. The way it was done didn't really hook me, even though I was like, oh, this is an interesting premise. I want to see how this concludes. I think overall, like, the script works, and I think there are some scenes that the direction works. Like, I really like the ultimate final fight that happens on the street and all this stuff happening after she reveals what's happening, like that final confrontation, that about 5 or so minutes. I think that stuff's directed very well.
I think these two leads are really stars. I also would say the choreography is quite good, but I just keep coming back to that direction. I think of another British directorial debut from this year. Look at Polite Society beside Rye Lane and think about how much better Polite Society would be if it was directed by someone who has that bombastic, bold style. Someone like Rain Allen Miller, who just absolutely took a rom-com and made it into one of the biggest, most kinetic movies that you could possibly imagine. I want to see Nida Manzoor because she clearly has vision. She clearly knows what she's doing. I want to see her next movie commit in the direction rather than backing off at the last moment.
I'm going to seek out whatever this director and writer do next, so I'm very happy to hear that it's the same person, and I would hope they get another chance to showcase their talents on the big screen.
Obviously, Polite Society it's a small directorial debut action movie, which doesn't feel like an Oscar thing, but we are an Oscar channel, so let's talk BAFTAs. Do we think this has any shot at the BAFTAs?
I mean, they do a list of 10 British movies, more than they do in Best Film overall, so I feel like it's probably pretty in there for a BAFTA British movie. Anything else probably is a stretch, but sometimes the BAFTAs really cling to one British production. Yeah. I don't think that will be this, but it could be.
I don't think it'll get into the list of 10 best British movies. I do think it'll get into the outstanding debut by a British writer or director. And I think that there's a chance that the lead actress who plays Rhea, she could make it in for the BAFTA Rising Star Award.
Possibly. I know that Rising Star Award usually requires you to be in like multiple things at once.
Oh, does
but
it?
I don't know where it doesn't require it, just the nominees usually reflect that they're like, hey, they're in a movie and a TV show, or they're in 2 movies or something like that. Maybe I'm just like pulling too much, but who knows? The year is still young. She has time to appear in something else. Well, everyone out there, let us know what were some of your favorite or least favorite aspects about this movie. But until next time, my name is Dyl.
And my name is Matt, and this has been Fantasy Filmball.